Welcome, everyone. My name is Lindy Fuller, and what I enjoy most about presenting workshops with Summit Credit Union is sharing my passion for financial wellness. Today, I'm excited to share the Money Management Steps to Financial Success workshop with you. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. My lovely colleague Liz is going to be monitoring the chat for me, and she'll make sure that if I do not cover everything that you need to have those questions answered, that I'm notified so we can do that, okay? If you don't mind, from this point on, please go ahead and stay muted. And if you do have thoughts to share, by all means, put them in the chat. My goal for everyone here is for you to find at least one valuable takeaway that you can start implementing within the next few days that'll contribute to your financial success. Okay, so let's get started. When you think about budgeting, are you crazy about that term? I personally think it sounds a little boring, or like you might have to give something up. So instead of a budget, I would rather call it a spending plan or money management. Even better, a financial success plan. Whatever you do call it, though, it's really nothing more than having a plan to tell your money where to go instead of just trying to figure out where it went. We've all had that experience, right? We're about the third week in the month, and you're going to wonder, where did my money go? I know I had some money last week. So if you're just spending without direction, hoping that you have something left at the end of the month, you and I both know it almost never happens, right? Okay. I hope this is not a new concept for you. Not spending more than you make. So let me help you take just a few steps to get on that financially successful path. We're going to start with commitment. Commitment is our first and most important step. Now, you have to commit, and your family has to buy in too, because everyone is going to be participating. You can't do it by yourself if you live in a home with more than one person, right? Everyone has to contribute. So if you have a partner, someone else who contributes to the income, that person can't make a budget, or you can't make a budget, and you all not talk, right? So think about that. Think about who your income earners are, as well as, I like to call them the outcome people too, because you've got kids, you know, they're probably not bringing in an income. They certainly affect the outcome. How do we overcome reluctant participants when we're worrying about how to make that plan work? It's going to require some incentive, isn't it? Maybe give them some allowance, or maybe think about taking away full access to debit cards and credit cards, because not everybody can handle it, right? So think about that when you are looking at the commitment level for yourself and for those who live with you. Second, we want to set some goals here. There has to be a reward for building a financial success plan. So let's say you want to save money to go to Disney, or you want to buy a home, buy a car, go back to school, better yet, get out of debt. Whatever your goal, you want to pick something that's important to you. You must set a goal to reach as a result of your plan. Does that make sense to everyone? The plan works best when there's an incentive. So what do we do with that? Well, let's think about using SMART goals, because SMART goals are the ones that are actually met. They're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and they always have that buy, when, or timed element to them. Personally, I'm a big fan of a vision board because most of us, I think more than 2/3 of people, are visual. So we can either write it down or use a vision board to incorporate so that our family, or if it's just us, that's fine, we count. We all have a buy-in and we can see and keep in front of us what's important, what our goal is. If we don't do that, imagine how much harder it would be to achieve and stay excited about. So the visual helps keep what's important in front of you and make sure that it's accountable. You're accountable, right, for staying on track. Now, if you don't agree with me, go ahead and put it in comments, but this is what I have found to be true. Let's look at some examples. Are these specific, measurable, adjustable, realistic, and have that time element? What might be a good SMART goal example for you personally? Because these are just some random, right? Some random ones. But we want to think about ourselves specifically. Does paying off a $1,200 loan by August 1st sound reasonable in your situation? Well, it could be, but it might not be for our neighbor. So that is a factor. Make sure it's realistic and make sure that you're really even able to accomplish that goal with the income, right, that's set aside. If the goals that you're writing down don't meet the SMART goals, relook at them and don't be afraid to be specific, okay? We're moving right along. Here we are at number 4. The 4th step, I call this the easiest step because you know where your money's coming from, typically down to the penny, right? But be sure to consider all the different sources of your regular income. Some of us have a full-time or a part-time income or both. Some of us have a disability or an SSI check. Others have tax income, right? Like a refund. This time of year, especially, we're thinking about that. When we're looking at our income statement, right, whether it's paper or digital, we're not looking at that gross, right? I hope you're not looking at that gross, not for the purposes of this financial plan or this budget.
Hello.
What we're looking at is the net. The net is the real money that's going into our account. Okay, so set your financial success plan up using your net. Okay, never the gross. That will definitely put you in trouble. And if you do have things like tax refunds, insurance rebates, or gifts, make sure that you're not putting that in the regular normal monthly plan, but those are extras. So maybe you have a plan specifically for that money, but it's not in your monthly plan, okay? We want to set you up for success. Now, Liz, if at any time the chat's got something happening, you just let me know. What we're going to do now is get you involved. Number 5, I want to know what you're doing for tracking. So look for a poll on your screen. Uh-oh, this is not letting me do it. I had a poll set up. Don't know why it's not showing up anymore. Okay, so let me ask, what methods are working for you? If you don't mind, put it in the chat. Are you using a digital format, something like a spreadsheet online? Are you using the envelope method? Are you using an an app that is separate from your bank accounts? Are you using something else? Some people use what's called the, well, of course, the check register, but the receipts method. They just put them all in a shoebox and try to organize them that way. I see several are using the spreadsheet and mobile. Okay, very good. That you will find is typically the easiest to track. But the biggest thing to remember is that whatever you choose, if it's not working, you got to be open to trying something new. Keep doing it though if it's working for you. Okay. Now, that said, if it starts working, but then it stops working, that's okay. Realize it, make a change. And you can let the credit union know if you need some assistance. I personally am a resource for the credit union for helping with things like this. I'm happy to do that, okay? Let's talk about the hardest step. The hardest step is tracking our spending. Now, why is that so hard? Well, it can be difficult because you have to account for every cent of your spending. Now you're like, Lindy, really every cent? Well, if you haven't tracked it up to now, then yes. And ultimately, what we're looking to do is to get 3 or 4 months worth, okay, of a history for what you've been doing so that we can get an idea of where to go from here. So if you need to start fresh today, that's fine. But if you can account for the last 3 or 4 months worth of spending, perhaps because you're like me and you almost never use cash, or if you do, it's earmarked for a specific thing and you can say, okay, yes, I know exactly what that went for, then you might need to give a couple extra months right in there to account for everything. All right, I hope that's clear and makes sense because we want to have that minimum, and that gives us an idea, not for the whole year, but a good chunk of the year, right? Everybody's last quarter is a little different. We know too that our quarter from, well, let's just say the last 3 months of the year is going to look a little different than the first 3 months that we're in currently, right? So you can appreciate why. Let's think about the last 2 or 3 months of tracking. And let's say we have a pretty good concept of where our money's going now, but because you might not have accounted for everything, we want you to, at the very least, start developing this spending plan by filling in the gaps where you know you have done specific things with your money. And if you can account for it, then you just go that extra month or so on. But this allows you some time to confirm your goals, because as you're looking through this, you might be going, I didn't really intend to spend that much money on that particular thing. I'm not sure I want to continue that, right? So this gives us an opportunity to communicate again with our family, to recommit, and to get a good idea of where things are going, not just where they've been, but where we want them to go. Because remember, we're in charge. We're directing our money at this point. At least that's our mindset. So to start tracking all of your spending, you want to think about the different types. Some are every week, some vary. Some come every month, but then there's those weird ones that come in like every other month or quarterly. I know I'm not the only one, right, that has a weird water bill. It's like every 6 or 7 weeks. It's never on the same day. But I don't live in Guilford County, so maybe some of you who are in Guilford County have it worked out. What I would love is for you to share if you've got any of those. Any weird expenses that are not consistent in the week or the month. Just because you can budget for those items though. In the process, we don't want you to pull your hair out because tracking expenses is very important. And ultimately, even though it's hard to develop that spending plan, you can do it. The trash bill is quarterly. Yeah, it's weird to me. It's so weird how some of these are. If you've got a quarterly one though, how do you budget right for that? Well, you want to be on a monthly, right? You want to be on a monthly spending plan, or not spending plan, a success plan for your money. So you want to take that figure and divide by 3 and then put that in there so that you've got, by the time it's ready to get paid, you've got 3 months worth or your quarterly bills funds ready. Obviously, if something is twice a year, that's 6 months, right? You get the idea. But some examples of variable spending that we would want to track are clothing, our groceries, dining out, medical costs. Now, I'm not talking about those recurring if you're someone who's got a consistent medical cost, okay? I'm talking about those surprise ones, those random ones that can come up. What about recreation? What about vending machines and fast food? I know I said dining out, but I mean dining out, not just drive-through, okay? Either way, you know that those things can be variable. So that's that. But what about your cash spending? Your cash spending is part of that too, especially if you're not someone that pulls out a specific amount, you just pull out whatever's available. ATM transactions need to be put into your budget if that's how you are. And I would suggest to start giving yourself a limit, okay? Doing that will help you track it easier, because maybe you just want to have some liquid funds in your bag or in your wallet. That's okay, but you need to budget for that and then say, okay, I'm only using this for drive-through, or I'm only using this for whatever specific need is. That way it sounds right and keeps it right in your financial success plan. Okay. Now, can you look at this list and account for how much your cash went to any of these items just in the last few months? Think about that. These can be some of the hardest things to track. I think somewhere I hit my hand, should not be raised. That's weird. There we go. If you see some of these things, you're completely normal, but these can be difficult to track. Now, if you're someone who puts gas on a gas card, that makes that simple, right? Because every month you pay that gas card off and you know exactly the amount, roughly, right, to put in for your budget once you have 3 or 4 months worth of it. But what about groceries? That can be a tough one, yeah. I have gotten in the habit, actually pre-pandemic, I got in the habit of using my app, my grocery store app, and right in the right-hand top corner, it gave me my total, which is so helpful because I'm of the mindset, I'm not trying to get everything I want, but everything I need and can afford. So that's a beautiful tool. If you're somebody that can't consistently stay within a certain budget for groceries, that might be something to try. Also, there's different food services that you might have. Those are all something that you can basically keep on budget with. Before you hit the button, it tells you the total and it gives you that accumulation of it as you go. So that's a great option, okay? But if you're finding you're spending money on things you really don't want to, it's a real easy way to track if you don't have them anymore. You can take some things right off. So after about a month of tracking, you're going to want to put all your expenses into some categories, right? Both your recurring bills and your spending receipts. This is where we want to start recording our findings. Most of you said you did have an electronic spreadsheet format that you were using. First, you want to list the recurring monthly expenses. Then the loan payments, insurance, rent, mortgage, all of that stuff. Then rather include your quarterly and annual expenses, things like your property tax, that water or trash bill that might not be exactly a month. And you can make those spreadsheet boxes, if you will, calculate it for you so you don't have to do any heavy lifting math wise. That's the beauty of a spreadsheet. Okay, so we're tracking, we're staying out of the red, and the goal here is to create what I like to call a cash cushion. Does anybody else like the idea of having a cash cushion? Wouldn't you want to sit on that? I would love the biggest cash cushion ever, but you can have that in your expense plan here, your savings plan, all of that. But when you compare what you have done to where you want to be, it can be shocking, right? So if you're spending less than your income, great. You still have some financial goals though that you want to meet, right? And you want to reach those. The faster you can do that, the better. So let whatever shock you may have when you're looking at what you've spent on things be a motivator for you. Now, some of you may be like, no, girl, I know exactly what I spend my money on. That's okay. But I guarantee you, you don't realize how much you're spending on some of those ancillary things like going through the drive-through or on some of that recreation. You don't realize it, especially if you're spending cash versus a transaction with your debit card. We just let it happen. Somehow it just happens. It's a sieve. The money just goes. That said, let it be a motivator. Okay, so what are the results of your comparison at this point? Are you spending less or more than you make? If it's more, then you really need to control spending in managing your financial success plan. Once you've tracked for 3 months at least, you can determine where you can cut spending. And yes, you can cut it. Let's take 2 vending machine trips a day. What do you think that costs? Well, it's about $50 a month. Are you a vending machine person? Maybe. What are some economical alternatives? Well, let's say you can save $3 to $4 each day by taking your lunch rather than going out to lunch. That's about $90 a month. Does anybody here need to save $90 a month? You can give up vending machines. You can put a value pack of snacks in your desk drawer or in the trunk of your car if you need to. And do we have any coffee drinkers? Any Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts people in the house? Do we really need to spend $4 or $5 on a cup of coffee? Some people go to Starbucks more than once a day. I have a friend who does that, or at least she used to. Twice a day is $300 a month. And I'm not talking about every day, 7 days a week. I'm talking about 5 work days, okay? So if we're not careful, we can spend a lot of money on things that are not necessities. Now, I didn't just say that coffee was a necessity, okay? Here's my plastic Starbucks reusable cup. Guess what I drank this morning? Folgers in it. You can do the same thing. You can get your coffee at home and go. That saves you so much more money every single week and month for your budget. Now, y'all got something funny to share, please do. But I'm just giving you some alternatives, okay? Do you think this is uncomfortable? Well, change in general is uncomfortable at best. So cutting our spending may be a little painful, but it doesn't have to stay that way. We're communicating with those whom we share our home and our money with, right? Everyone's on the same page. This point, though, we're uncomfortable and it might be hard to maintain that. What do we say to each other? What do you say to them to keep them excited about those goals? I've got a family of 3. So this is what I might say. With all 3 of us committing to packing a lunch just on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're going to be able to save at least $50 a week that'll go into our vacation fund. Are we feeling like we can do that? What do you all think? If you were my family, would that be something you feel like you could do? 2 days a week? And I specifically said Mondays and Wednesdays, right? Because as a family, I'm probably going to be the ones making the lunch. I'll be real. But that $50 a week is what, at least $100 a month going into that vacation fund. And that is part of my goals. That's part of what's on my vision board that the whole family can see. Okay. So what do you think? Would it be worth it? If it is, how do we know? Well, this example shows that lunch costs between $4 and $15, averaging about $10 a day. Okay. And that's not being frivolous. That's being a little frugal, right? The blog that's mentioned here goes on to say that brown bagging, it costs between $2 and $6 a day. So if we take that average cost, it's $4. So $10 a day to go out, $4 a day to brown bag it. That's a 60% savings over eating out, typically a drive-through, if you save $6 a day. If you do that 5 days a week, and that's because I'm thinking about a work week, okay? That's $30 every week for just one person. That's $120 a month and almost $1,500 a year. So quantify that for yourselves and thinking about just that one way that you could potentially save and make it worth it for you. Now, realistically, maybe 5 days a week is just asking too much. That's okay. Start packing your lunch once a week. $6 savings for 52 weeks is an average of $312 a person per year. For a family of 3, if we did it just once a week, that's compared to eating out, that's $936 a year. So it's a gradual savings, right? It's realistic. And it really does give us big dividends. And that's what we want to see. We want to see our sacrifice be worth it when it comes to what it's going to accomplish and helping us reach our goals. Okay, so yes, you can do it and it's worth it. Let's look at some examples. These are some of the average costs of these expenses. Now, some tell me higher, some tell me lower. These are based on a 2018 cost analysis. I tried to get a more current one. It doesn't exist at my fingertips. But one pack of cigarettes a day then costed $5.51. I don't know what brand, they just gave me that figure. A pack a day for a year would be $2,011 and change. Okay. Now let's say you're a smoker and that is your guilty pleasure and you are not giving it up. I'm not here to tell you to do that. I am here to say though, if you're not happy with how much you're spending in the course of a year for that guilty pleasure, think about cutting back. If you want to cut back to half a pack a day, it's not cutting it off, right? It's just cutting back. You can save $1,000 every year. So that's just one example. If you're someone that deals with all of these, or maybe your family does, look at the cost savings here. Any comments? Any feelings on some of this stuff? I know some people are very passionate about some of these topics. I think you have to find the thing for you and just think about what makes sense to cut back and find some room in my budget, right? Okay. Moving on. This is step 10. Step 10 is where we allocate funds for the most important expense we have. It's savings, okay? We want to pay ourselves first by putting our money in savings as an expense on our spreadsheet or our financial success plan. The easiest way to do this is through direct deposit or what some call automatic transfer. Okay, if their bills are paid from a different account sometimes than where they might get their direct deposit. Automatic transfer works great too. The thing that makes it great is the automatic part, right? Because it's set up consistently and you don't physically have to move money. Moving money can be a pain. And this is already difficult to pay a bill, right? But if we can make it easier for ourselves to make it automatic, that will help. And our savings is something only we can control that part. If we want to set that up, we can do that for almost any amount. At least here at Summit, you can set it up for almost any amount. On top of any physical or what I might call manual transfers you want to do, if you get a nice refund right on your taxes and you want to give your savings account some extra cushion, then you can do that. Think about how much cushion do you really need? Does anyone know how much money they should have in their emergency fund? According to top financial experts. No guesses? The top experts say 3 to 6 months. Marianne, very good. So 3 is the minimum and 6 months is ideal. If you don't have an emergency fund, that's okay. Guess what? Starting today or tomorrow or your next payday, whatever day that is, you can actually put this in to work, okay? Even if it's as little as $5 every paycheck, you start putting something aside in an automatic direct deposit type format. That way you don't have to think about it. You set it up and let it accumulate. If you get a raise, put more in it because this is your cushion. Why do you need a cushion? Life happens, right? We have sickness. We have Perhaps some of us, kids in college or in school, they need laptops. They need all kinds of stuff. They need us to feed them and clothe them. But stuff breaks. We might have a tire, blowout. We might have an air conditioning unit blowout. Who knows what? Any type of emergency is what we have the emergency fund for. So I know none of us were anticipating the pandemic, right? We didn't have an emergency fund for that. We probably felt it a little more financially than somebody who did. So the best defense, right, is an offense. Be prepared and start using direct deposit and automatic transfer to your advantage. Now, we have financial advisors here at the credit union, and they're fabulous. So I will mention the one that is sitting here in my office at our at our administrative branch on West Market Street. His name is Mark Lopresti. But we have two others, one in the Triangle area named Andre, and one in the Hickory and Winston area named Chris. So please reach out. You can use those at no additional charge if you need to have someone as members to bounce some ideas off of, to get some help with a budget, and to maybe get some further insight into long-term goals that you have financially. Now, that said, retirement is the biggest thing that they all specialize in. So definitely do that. So I've covered emergency fund and I've covered retirement, but what is this opportunity fund up here for? What could that be? When you think about an opportunity investment, yes, retirement is one of those investments, but an opportunity fund might be a more short-term investment, right? It might actually be a vacation fund. I've got a member who I helped set up the annual Girls Weekend Fund. We set up a special savings just for that for her with an allocation, and every year that thing gets funded. And to me, it's so much fun to think about doing something like that. But guess what? That wouldn't be financially viable without that automatic transfer, right? So think about it. Think about what your goals are in life and set yourself up for success with these kind of tools. All right, moving on. Looking at step 11. This is where we're developing our spending plan and we're setting our spending limits. We've determined our income. We've tracked our expenses for those 3 or 4 months. We've already determined where to cut expenses. And we're seeing where we can allocate and set certain dollar amounts for those variable things that we spend money on. Our groceries, our recreation, entertainment, things like that. Don't forget about the salon, right? Those things are important too, but we gotta get it all in. We can't just spend whatever though. We have to set our limits. So make sure that you're being real with yourself. And finally, step 12 is where we review our plan and we adjust as needed so that we can see what the path is, what we have on the path, and we can stay on it so we can be financially successful. Every penny is accounted for, but you don't have to work that hard after those 3 or 4 months, because then you're now developed a habit, right? How many days, for those of you that know, how long does it take to develop a habit? Jasmine, we will be able to provide that for you. Okay, that's right, 21 days. Thank you very much. We have 21 days of doing something in a row, it becomes a habit. So if we have tracked, right, for 3 or 4 months, it's kind of now our habit. We don't have to be as strict with ourselves after that. Once we get to that point, though, we've got our 3 or 4 months down. It's kind of a built-in routine. We can relax a little bit, though, because now we only have to really worry about things that are new. If we need to take something away or if we need to add it. Once we've paid a bill off that's not a recurring bill, that's a time to celebrate. And I hope you do. I hope you do a little dance and celebrate, because paying off a bill is huge, right? Ultimately, I want you all to have the 12 steps together. And normally I would do a poll for you, but I want for you to see here what all the steps are and answer in the chat. Who remembers what the most important step is of all of these? The most important. Cutting back, that would be number 9. Nope, that's not it. Good guess. Yes, there we go. The most important is commitment. Very good. Some of you were on it. Now, which of the 12 is the easiest step? The one we can visualize down to the penny. I'll give you that hint. You see it? Which step? Yes, number 4, it's evaluating our income. Because remember, we've got an earnings statement, right? Every time we're paid, whether that's weekly, biweekly, or monthly, whatever it is, we can see what our net income is, because our net is what we're going to be using in our financial success plan. Which is the hardest step? And I know you might think it's cutting your spending, but I'll tell you it's not that one. The hardest step, we haven't been doing this in the past. It gets really difficult. Sarah is on it. Yes, tracking our spending. So you all pass, okay? I'll give everyone who needs a certificate that they passed, I'll provide that for you. But understand, this is something you can do. And these are baby steps, because sometimes we need a step-by-step process in order to make it work. Now, you can screenshot this if you would like to, but if you would prefer that I email you a PDF or a JPEG format of this particular slide, I'm happy to do that as well, okay? It's valuable to put it where you can see it to keep you on track. You might even put it on your vision board. If you want me to email it, please put your email in there, okay? I'll be happy to do that for everyone who needs that. If you would prefer to email me directly, you're welcome to do that as well. And I'm happy to provide the what I call the deck for this presentation, as well as that PDF.